I dropped my high school girlfriend off. Then, for some reason, I locked the passenger door. Not 10 minutes later, I was stopped at a red light and some scummy-looking dude tried to open up the door. I have no idea why I locked that door after she got out. I really didn't have a habit of that. No idea what would have happened if that guy got in my truck. Something similar happened to me. I was dropping my friend off at home. He lived in a sketchy neighborhood. I had my driver's side door locked and as soon as he got out, I immediately locked the other one. These 3 girls come running out of the bushes trying to open my car doors. One jumped on my hood and I gunned it. She rolled off my car. The other chucked her drink at my driver's side door. I'm terrified to think about what they were going to do to me. Not my ass, but my mom's. She and I were home alone and I was getting ready to go to a party. I came upstairs and found her with the carbon monoxide detector in pieces on the coffee table. She said it was beeping and apparently once years ago in our last house one was malfunctioning and giving a false alarm. So I guess she just assumed it was happening again. I shrugged it off and continued getting ready. I was about to leave but something was nagging at me. She was insisting it was fine. After some arguing with her, I said, "No, we are calling the fire department." So I did. They came and the levels of carbon monoxide were so high in the basement they said anyone sleeping down there would be dead already. Our cats were vomiting from the poisoning and we didn't realize. I guess the filter on the furnace was so clogged it was pumping out carbon monoxide. One of the firefighters pulled me aside and said if I hadn't called I likely would have come home to my mom dead in her bed. Was watching my toddler nephew and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around. But I just read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face. So I took the metal one from nephew and gave him a soft squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I say less than 5 minutes later. He fell like toddlers do and I saw the silicone straw all smushed into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that lol. Was delivering pizza in a sketchy block of town late at night. Huge apartment complex with multiple buildings. Walking up to the front door, I noticed a couple guys wearing dark clothing about 100 foot behind me walking in my direction. Delivery was on the 2nd floor, and by the time I reached her door, I heard the main door of the apartment complex open and close. She used a credit card for the order and tipped in cash. So when I was putting the receipt into my bag, where I kept my cash, I actually pulled the rest of the cash out and stuffed it into my inner jacket pocket just to be safe, leaving just the change I had that night in the bag. Started to head down the stairs back out to my car and 2 guys jumped out from behind the stairs and the one had a gun pointed at me and told me to give them the money. I quickly handed them my bag filled with quarters and they took off towards the back entrance of the apartment complex. I never ran so fast in my life back to my car. I wanted to make sure I was as far away as possible before they realized they robbed me of $3.50 in quarters. I once had to explain to a guy that the motel he was staying in, despite being 1 mile from the pizza spot, was not a location we'd be sending drivers due to its reputation. He got pissed, swore at me, and even threatened to come down there. Like, yeah, exactly my point. Also, if you come down here, we can definitely make you a pizza. God, that place sucked. During a hurricane, I realized the street was flooding, so I figured I should move my car farther up the driveway. On my way out, I had the sudden urge to poop. So, just to be safe, I stopped by the bathroom first. Maybe 30 seconds later, boom. Neighbor's tree fell directly on my car, crushing it. That saved your life. Had some weird achy symptoms and went to the doctor even though I figured I was probably overreacting. Turns out I had cancer. I had a friend who died of cancer aged 40. Whenever I feel embarrassed or that I'm overreacting about a possible issue, I imagine how much she would yell at me for not getting something checked out for a stupid reason. I'm an oncology nurse. You would be amazed at the number of patients I have had who have come into the hospital for unrelated XYZ, get scanned, and find out they have cancer. Putting only one of my work shoes in the hotel safe along with my valuables literally has stopped me in my tracks from forgetting my wallet and passport in a different country. My friend and his wife were having their first child. They had gotten a big packet of information and paperwork to fill out before the due date to make things easier. There were also brochures for genetic testing and other things that could be done. And one of the things was about saving the cord blood. My friend said that he looked at the front of the brochure and his wife asked if they should do it. It is not cheap. A couple thousand to save it and a few hundred a year after that. And my friend said yes. Their daughter was born later that year, 3 years after her birth. They had a boy and he was born with an immune disorder, no white cells, and his big sister's cord blood and stem cells were used as a treatment. Normally, I'm pretty impressionable and cave to peer pressure, But this one time when I was younger, I was hanging with my friends and a couple of older high school guys I'd only met that day. The girls were all fawning over them, but I could tell they were idiots. When they all wanted to go for a drive with the guys. I thought, nah, I don't trust these guys and I think it's best I just call my parents and go home. I got a call the next morning from one of the girls who was passenger. One of the high school boys was driving. They'd had a serious crash and one of the girls wasn't wearing her seatbelt and hit her head on the dash and was in a coma for 6 months. She was in intensive care and rehabilitation for years. Still can't believe of all the days I decided not to go with the flow, it probably saved my life. Terribly sad about my friend. We were really close, but she never came right and her personality changed. I still wonder how successful she might have been and if we'd still be friends if that hadn't happened to her. Really sad. Similar story here. 3 older kids were going out drinking one night and my girlfriend invited me to go with them. I decided to stay home that night. They went drinking and driving. They crashed around midnight in the middle of winter. My girlfriend was laying in the snow for over 8 hours until she was found by a bus driver. She was paralyzed from the waist down. The 2 guys were killed in the crash. Very graphic scene. Very awful deaths. Never ever drink and drive. Not me but my dad. Bought into a $500,000 life insurance policy at 42 years old. Many people made fun of him, called him crazy, etc. And he said exactly that just to be safe. He had a seizure at 43 years old. July 2007. Brain cancer. Died June 2008 at 44. Policy was paid into for less than 2 years. I've carried life insurance since I was 21. Too much cancer in my family and my dad died extremely young. I'm sorry. That's so young. It is beautiful that he had the foresight to take care of you. Thank you for your kind words. It really is. I didn't actually live with him. Complicated co-parent situation, but my stepmom and significantly younger sister were well provided for. On a road trip with my siblings and I, dad in Latin America, he lived there and we were visiting on a highway at night with clouds, no moon and no lights. This was a new highway that nobody likes taking now as criminals often leave glass or spikes to puncture tires and rob you or worse. We were driving and this guy was pulled over and waving for help. My dad stopped behind and the guy was scared and asked if we could light up his car while he changed a flat tire. He was terrified of being out there alone and rightfully so. Dad goes to get out to help and my sister grabbed him and said she didn't think this felt right. Dad assured us it was fine and almost got out, but sister grabbed him again. Right then, a car flew by the door right where he would have been. 4 guys jump out. One grabs the man, puts a gun to his head, and the other sprint to our car. There was a brief chase down the highway, but luckily their old Corolla didn't keep up with our Jeep, and they gave up after 2 to 3 minutes of driving 170 km/h. My sister saved my dad's life and probably ours by making him stay in the car that extra few seconds. Edit. The guy with a gun to his head lived and was okay given everything. After the chase, we had to turn around and continue on the way we were originally going, as there were no other routes to get back home, unless we backtracked 6 hours. After we passed the vehicle of the man, we saw he wasn't there anymore and we thought the worst. Luckily, we ended up passing 4 National Guard vehicles about 2 kilometers later and saw that the man was with them talking to them. To answer, I've never known if the guy was in on it. The timing has always seemed off to me. However, the look of fear in his face was so genuine when the guys jumped out that I can remember it perfectly 15 years later. Edit 2. The country in question is Venezuela. Save the GPS location of my vehicle on Google Maps before exploring a national forest with a road trip buddy. We grab some fishing poles and head out towards the nearest water location on our map to hopefully catch a couple fish. Turns out it was a swamp, not a lake, and we got so incredibly turned around it could have ended very badly. We really didn't go that far in from where we parked, but somehow ended up on the other side of the swamp without realizing it. Drizzling rain, mosquitoes, bear tracks, and the sun started going down before we found the car. Without the GPS coordinates saved, it would have been a cold, wet night in the woods at a minimum, and more than likely a search and rescue required situation. My dad lost his glasses once. He was going to just use his old prescription, but last minute decided to just go to the optometrist anyway in case something changed. Turns out he had a tear in his retina and was booked for surgery within 24 hours. It was bad enough. They said he probably would have gone blind really soon had they not caught it when then did. How did he get a tear in his retina? Also, I'm glad he's okay. I don't remember a cause ever being determined. I do know his vision is beyond awful. He had laser eye surgery in 1997-ish and still needed glasses after, just way thinner, but this was in 2008 or so. I have no idea if any of that is relevant. Snow chains at the bottom of the mountain. A bunch of cars passed me on a clear road on the way up with several warnings all the way up. I saw a local throwing on chains with no snow in the area. I decided to be safe and put them on. 30 minutes later, I was in one of the worst snow driving conditions I've ever seen. Whiteout conditions in a snowstorm that eventually resulted in the complete shutdown of the roads. I passed car crash after car crash with just enough traction to feel somewhat comfortable moving 15 miles per hour. Anyone heading to Tahoe needs chains and chains that fit. Don't __around. I don't care if you have a four-wheel drive. Driving through Tahoe and Mammoth during snowstorms is no joke. Literally sunny with no clouds to blinding white darkness in an hour. Edit. One more thing. If you find yourself near Heavenly and Siri sends you to a snowed over hill that feels too steep, turn around. Unless you have the right setup, you aren't going to make it. Snow chains or not, you will slide. Just take the Harrah's gondola if it's that bad. If you don't already have your own gear, try another resort. Heavenly is uniquely bad for rentals and beginners in general. If a local that is used to driving in the snow is putting on chains, you know that __ is going to be bad. I lock my doors habitually, walk through a door, reach behind me, twist the lock. It's the way I was raised, and I honestly don't even think about it. I've actually gotten myself into trouble absent-mindedly locking other people's doors, house, offices, shops. I'm a menace. This one night, I'm sitting and reading pretty late, and I suddenly think, I need to check my front door to make sure it's locked. Lo and behold, it's actually unlocked. Shocked me a bit, but I locked the door in the deadbolt and slid the chain for good measure, then go get myself a glass of water. As I'm walking with my glass of water from the kitchen back past my front door, I catch a movement out of the corner of my eye. I turn to the door and watch the doorknob slowly try to turn left and right. The micro movements that a locked doorknob can be forced when twisted. I put on as deep of a voice as I can and forcefully stage project. I have a gun and I'm calling the cops. The doorknob stopped turning. I slept in a closet that night just in case. One day I was attempting to make karaoke for the first time, a kind of Filipino fried mochi. And after I popped them in the oil, I settled in and watched them carefully. I never wear an apron whilst cooking, but for some reason, I figured why not this time. And as soon as I stepped out of range of the fryer, they all exploded. Turns out karaoke can form an impermeable shell when fried. So pressure built up inside until they popped and sprayed hot oil all over the kitchen. Of course, I was safely away reaching for an apron and was completely dumbfounded. Made sure to punch some holes in all subsequent batches. Of course, once I cleaned the kitchen, I ate them and they were delicious. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. Everything tastes nicer after it tries to kill you. I used to get bored and study my mother's old, probably late 80s, early 90s, first aid study guides from her lifeguarding years whenever I was bored. I could ace the practice tests with the pressure of being timed or pop quizzed. Even though some of it was outdated, it helped in 2013 when my neighbor had a stroke on her front porch and choked on the crackers she was eating. I'll never not have flashbacks to that whenever someone even mentions the word stroke. I immediately called an ambulance and got her airway cleared and in recovery position. She survived that one, but sadly passed about a year later from another. I hope to never have to use any of the official training I've been renewing every couple of years. It's nerve-wracking to go through even with the positive outcomes. Grabbed a helmet when riding a bike down a steep hill as a kid. Normally didn't, but I ended up falling at top speed and breaking my helmet and chipping 3 teeth. Could have been my head that was broken. As a paramedic that's seen some sad __. Always wear a helmet when riding a bike, no matter what age you are either. I've seen a couple deaths where dad took his young kids out for a bike ride and didn't wear a helmet. Dad falls and gets a massive traumatic brain injury. Dies in the hospital. All could have been prevented if he was just wearing a helmet. I also grew up with this family that has one son who fell going down his driveway on his bike. He's probably 40 years old now and still has the mental capacity of an 8-year-old. Wasn't wearing a helmet. In college, I was in resident assistant. A girl wanted to hook up with me, and I was going to, but I ended up drinking and watching Lord of the Rings 2 Towers with some friends instead at their dorm. Few days later, I was fired from my resident assistant job for sexually harassing a student. I didn't in any way, shape or form sexually harass anyone, and the date time given was when I was in middle of movie. I had 13 people to vouch for me. Never found out this person who reported me, but I'm fairly certain we can all guess who it was because after I and my friends all literally said I was watching movie, which I was. And also, I slept over at their dorm. Nothing wrong with a 12-dude sleepover. Haha. I was rehired in case dismissed. Had my penis won the decision to hook up or not, I'd probably be in hot __. It sort of sounds like she might have been a crazy who reported you for not hooking up. The irony would be if you never got accused had you gone through with it and then accused him the next time he did anything wrong, like refused the next hookup. Don't stick your dick in crazy, yo. Lived in Baltimore at the time. Pulled up outside my place after getting off a late shift and had to get a backpack out of my trunk before going in. I noticed a group of teenaged kids hanging out on the corner and thought, nope. Called my roommate to come watch me walk to the door. About 10 minutes later, a girl comes running down the street bleeding, saying she got jumped by the group of kids for no reason. Stay alert out there, y'all. I was in a similar situation a few years ago, and I decided to ignore my gut. And you know what happened? I got jumped and mugged. If something feels off, there's a good chance it is. Had my boat trailer bearings repacked by the boat repair shop/deer before I went on a trip that I had to tow it for over 400 m. I usually repack the bearings myself, but figured I'd have the pros do it since I had a long haul ahead of me. The day before I left, I decided to double-check that the bearing case was full of grease. Without it, they would overheat, and I'd be ___ royally and stranded with a high risk of a wheel actually coming off the trailer if I didn't notice it in transit. There was no grease at all in the bearing case on any of the four wheels. I would have been lucky to make it 20 m before something serious happened. Also, this has been a habit for decades. Pat my pocket to make sure my keys are in my pocket before closing the locked house door, my car door, etc. Worked alone in a gambling/video poker place, closing. Strange guy came in and started making small talk with me. I was expected to be kind and friendly to everybody who came in. So, I was doing that. I decided to send a message to my boyfriend and a friend. And then something in me told me to take a picture of the guy as he moved closer to the counter I was behind. I snuck one real quick and sent it to said friend since she was awake. She called me immediately as she drove the 20 minutes to my job an hour before I got off. I'll add I didn't drive, so I had no vehicle in the now abandoned parking lot. The only car being his, which was conveniently backed in right next to front door. 2 days later there was a missing persons report released of someone who was a very familiar build and features that I have and suspected trafficking in the area. She went missing later that same night. He left after my friend showed up. I've never had such an uneasy feeling in my life, and I truly think sending those messages are what saved my life. He was waiting for me to get off work at 1 a.m. Our hours were right on the front door. I had something similar happen as a teen. It was my 13th birthday, and my parents had rented a hotel room for my friends and I to enjoy, as young girls tend to do. We were running around the hotel being silly. At one point, we're racing each other, running up and down the stairs into the elevators and such when we run past a guy standing outside his hotel room. He instantly gave me really bad vibes based on how he was looking at us. This wasn't just some annoyed adult who wanted this group of girls to shut the ___ up and quit running amok. He watched us like prey. So, half of us run to the other end of the hall for the stairs while 2 of us get into the elevator to see who can get down to the first floor from the 3rd floor fastest. As we're going down, the elevator stops at the 2nd floor, and I think, dang it, we're going to lose this round. But when it opens, the creep from the 3rd floor is standing there. Before he can even get into the elevator, I grab my friend's hand and drag her off the elevator with me. He says, "Where are you going? I thought you were going down." And I said, "No, this is where we need to go." And I start sprinting to the stairs where my other friends are. He never got off the elevator at the 1st floor. And we went straight to our room after that and didn't leave for the rest of the night. My friend kept saying I was being paranoid and that there were 2 of us versus 1 of him, as if 2 small girls can take on a grown man. I didn't tell my parents what happened that night, but I did see that man's face a couple weeks later. He was arrested and charged in a string of grapes in the area. I cried my eyes out and told my mom everything. She was so relieved that I trusted my gut, but it did not help with her helicopter mom tendencies. My stomach had some issues and my doctor sent me for a colonoscopy just to get things checked out. They found 1 polyp. No big deal, not related to the current problem, and told me to come back in 5 years just in case. I put a Google reminder and forgot about it. 5 years later, I went for the colonoscopy and they found a lot more and said I would have ended up with cancer in 5 to 20 years for sure had I not gone. Instead, they removed all polyps and now I'm regularly going to colonoscopies due to having a syndrome they identified. I'm far away from the age where you normally get a colonoscopy. So, I would definitely have got cancer. When you are eligible, or if it is recommended, get a colonoscopy. I had a female patient coming for iodine 131 therapy. Patient must be not pregnant and to make sure we do a blood test 1 day prior to dosing. I checked the results on screen, that was negative. I printed it out and put it in the patient file just in case, although we went paperless years earlier. After giving her radiation safety instructions and discharging her, she came a couple of days saying that she was late. The doctor inserted another pregnancy blood test and came out positive. The lab technician went to the previous negative blood test and changed it to positive. Haven't I printed the test? It would look like I dosed the patient while pregnant and could get fired. Staff before this incident used to make fun of me being paranoid. After this incident, everyone started printing the results. LOL. Because a lot of people asked and to answer their questions. ETA, this happened in MENA, Middle East and North Africa. I reported it to the head of department. He immediately involved the medical physics department and they calculated the dose to the fetus and found out she had to abort because the baby will be severely mutated. So, they involved the obstetrician gynecologist also. Last thing I knew that a huge investigation was carried out and the patient filed an official complaint. I don't know what happened later. Everything completely changed. Policies and procedures /HOSP's information systems /quality department was established. Risk management department was established, etc. That was back in the beginning of 2007. The system was installed in the end of 2006. That was the first time anyone used an electronic system. Somehow it randomly occurred to me one day to purchase pet insurance for my dog. Some months later, my dog suffered a severe back injury and needed surgery to reverse the paralysis. It was expensive out of pocket, but without the reimbursement from insurance, it would have been way worse. Edit, back taxes. Here he is post-surgery standing by himself. And for more recent pics, here he is sleeping and looking goofy. Most of my dog pics are of him asleep since otherwise he moves around so much it just looks like a blur.